Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Today's a brutal day, man. It's a brutal day. It really is brutal today. I got so much to uh regurgitate, I guess you can say in a way. I don't plan to like go on any crazy rants. I did that earlier today. I didn't want to try to go on a rant about the whole Scalebound situation and stuff like that. Normally, I would hold this for a super pod shout on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. But I mean, this news is just too big. It's too big. And what's funny is that Fallout Boys. What's funny is that you know normally I would just kind of like go on a rant or whatever and go ham and be upset about the whole situation. But I'm not. I kind of got a chance to digest it. Yeah, I was disappointed, obviously. Yeah, I was upset, obviously, and stuff like that. As a gamer, who wouldn't be upset? Obviously, if you're not upset about this, if you're an Xbox gamer, you're not upset about this situation, then you'll definitely be highly uh well, I can't say that. Let me rephrase that because there are some people who actually weren't interested in the game. But here's what's funny. Here's what's funny. On my timeline, I happened to I happened to tweet Phil Spencer. After taking some time to think about some things, just digest the situation and kind of pull myself back down, get out of that kind of rant mode, and really get back to reality of being, a person that's level-headed and rational and logical about the things I say and talk about. I went ahead and I reached out to Phil and I told him that, it's disappointing. Listen, as Tick Podcast, as somebody that supports Xbox, as somebody that supports Phil Spencer as head of Microsoft, it's definitely disappointing to know that Scalebound's been canceled. And I think it's hurt the brand a little bit. I think it's hurt the brand in a way where it's kind of set Xbox back a little bit. But at the same time, I'm hoping that they show something that's crazy at E3. And in response to that, he turned around and he said something like, um, he understands. It was a difficult decision, and he's disappointed as well, but he's pretty confident in E3 2017. And from there, all hell broke loose on my Twitter feed, and everything just went crazy. And I'm talking about hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of tweets between Phil and my account and people chiming in, people with egg accounts, PlayStation fans, Xbox fans, PC fans. Everybody was just jumping into the conversation. And it was crazy, man. It was like really hectic. It was really crazy. It was insane for a bit. But the crazy thing about it was that somebody made a point. All of a sudden, all these people who didn't give a damn about Scalebound, didn't chime in on Scalebound, didn't care about it. Oh, it looked like you're stuttering. The game's not going to be good. It's not going to sell. It's going to flop bound and all these things like that. Suddenly, everyone's interested in the game. What? How can you cancel this game? Oh my God, Microsoft is terrible. It was the only game I was interested in. And I'm sitting up here, I'm like, where were these people? Like, I don't even know where these people came from. I don't even know I've never seen you before. And trust me, I remember names. In the Xbox community, it doesn't matter where you are or who you rock with. I've seen your name at one time or another over the last, 3 years since I've been podcasting. So for me, it's very funny to see all of these random people come out of the woodwork and all of a sudden support Scalebound like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And don't get me wrong, the reason why I'm upset is because out of all the games that Microsoft showed, to me, that game was one of the few titles that really set itself apart from everything else. Microsoft is known to have the big blockbuster titles, the Western RPGs, the the shooters and the sports titles and the racing games and stuff like that, as well as some really cool PC MMOs and survival games like Ark and stuff like that. So it's a good blend, it's a good meld for what they do. But the great thing about Scalebound to me, what I liked about it the most, besides the dragon, obviously, is the fantasy world of it. The world is what I was intrigued by. You know, the possibility of fighting titans, I guess you could say, yeah, titans in a way, as far as the enemies, you know. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. So, I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, this is crazy, because it's like, like I said, all these people are coming out of the woodworks. I don't know where any of these people came from, and I'm intrigued with this fantasy world, the lore that possibly could be built off of this. Um, the fact that you fight these giant monsters or these titans, and then there's a possibility there was an aspect where you had multiplayer involved, and the people involved in the multiplayer can help you battle these titans. So for me, that was a big deal. I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's different. There's no action RPGs like this. I think the closest action RPG you have, where you have a 4-player co-op aspect, is like Dragon Dogma. And even then, Dragon's Dogma isn't even 4-player co-op. You just have 3 AI companions. So to me, that was nice. It was awesome. It was a big deal. It was different. Um, and then obviously we get the news today about it got canceled. And clearly, obviously, if you're an Xbox guy, like I said, if you were looking forward to this game, if this was the game you were buying an Xbox for, it's clearly disappointing. Um, I went on a little rant earlier. I tried not to, but it's hard when you look at what Microsoft produces and what you want them to produce. You think about what they had on 360, and you want to be able to support that diversity. You want to be able to support that, their attempt to bring in unique titles. And to me, even if the game didn't sell, even if it was niche, it was a title that was owned by Microsoft, and it was a title that we could have seen a sequel to, which could have brought those fans back. And that's something that I said on my last Super Pod shot about, even if a game doesn't sell, you still want to be able to produce a niche title. And the niche titles, if you have enough of them, will eventually accumulate into a larger install base, and people want to buy your console and buy your games because they can only get it on your platform or on PC, Windows 10. So I thought that was a big deal. And games like Recore, I think, deserve a second chance. Quantum Break, I think, deserves a second chance, to be done right, to fix the things that you messed up the first time around. I think Sea of Thieves has the potential as well. And I think that Scalebound also was one of those titles, but now that it's canceled, it's crazy to see. Now, I just want to make some things clear. Microsoft owns the trademark to Scalebound. So no, you will not see Scalebound on PlayStation 4 or Nintendo Switch or PC, unless Microsoft decides to give up the trademark, IP, and the publishing to Platinum. Then someone said to me, what if they decided to allow the game on, make the game be made by a different studio? But then I said, listen, even if you allowed a different studio to take on the game, the idea came from Kamaya. If you go back to our interview with Kim Lobb, one of the things he said was that Kamaya approached Microsoft in 2010 because he had this idea about this game, Dragons, that he always wanted to do. He always wanted to build. But for some apparent reason, their games don't sell as well. It doesn't have the marketing that it normally does. And he wanted to do something with the Western studio. And that's how that came to be. And that started in 2010, 2011. So this game has been in production for years. It's been in production since like 2012. It's been in production for a very long time. And I recently just read that there just was a lot of deadlines missed with the game. I'm not sure if the game was going to be ready. And you look at titles that they probably forced out, Recore being one of them. And this is just me being rational for a second. Before I'm a gamer, I have to be rational and logical about the situation. So if the game looked okay or didn't look as good, there was frames per second drops at last. Not was it last year's game comp? No, no, it was last the year before. The year before 2016, 2015 Gamescom, if it looked like it had frame issues, if it looked like it wasn't running correctly or whatever, and they were still working on the game and it still wasn't panning out after all this time, then yeah, you have to wonder, do we put this game out and it get poor reviews and no one buys the game, especially a Japanese title? Especially a Japanese title. As much as I want that game, as much as I want everybody to pick this game up and support it, do you put out a bad title just for the sake of putting out that title? Then I recently just read that there were team members that had to take breaks. I mean, they were working themselves to death. You think about Platinum. Platinum's not an overly large studio. You know, they're working on Near Automata, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You have Bayonetta 2. They like stretching themselves thin between all these different projects, all trying to make these things release all at the same time. And then you have Scalebound. And, you know, Scalebound just happened to be one of those games that didn't, I guess, hit its mark. And because of that, it got canceled. I've even heard that Kamaya's-san had a mental breakdown because of the work. And I don't know if it was a complication because you want to add co-op to it. See, I wanted something simple. I just wanted an action RPG. I didn't want nothing too crazy, just a simple action RPG. You know, the element of co-op to me was foreign. I didn't think it was necessary, but I get it. It's Microsoft Touch. They want to put co-op in the game. They want to have more inclusion for the online element. I get that. Maybe it was a problem with the online element. Maybe it was a problem fighting the big giant titans. I'm not trying to make an excuse for the cancellation. I'm just being rational. At the end of the day, however, the game is canceled and it no longer will be produced by Platinum. And that's a setback for Microsoft. And in my opinion, that's a big setback for Microsoft. It's a big setback in the department of you had a title that interests people outside of the West or even people outside of America, along with the Americans themselves, into possibly picking this title up. And like I said, even if it didn't sell amazingly well, even if it sold 900,000 copies, it's a niche title. It's a title that, you know, could have been something that fans truly would have taken on and loved overall, you know, long term. But now that's not going to happen. So I want to start some Q&A. I want to get your questions. I want to try to answer some questions. I'll take your thoughts. You give me what you think is going on with Microsoft. Phil Spencer feels like there's going to be a 2017 lineup that gives him a lot of confidence and fans will be excited with it. I already said on Twitter that, listen, I don't see how they can replace Scalebound. Scalebound was my most anticipated game for 2017. I like Crackdown. It looks great. But Scalebound was my game, and now that it's gone, I'm not seeing anything other than possibly Sea of Thieves that replaces it. And even then, my hype level for Sea of Thieves isn't as great as it was for Scalebound. So, what I think the only games that they can drop, the only game that they could surprise me with at E3 is Lost Odyssey or something from Miss Walker. I mean, that's really the only thing that they could surprise me with, you know, replacement of a Japanese RPG game to replace Scalebound. And I'm definitely picking up a second console at this point. This like this without question. You know, whether it's the Switch, whether it's the PlayStation, I'm picking one of those up, especially if the PS4 comes with a Horizon Dawn bundle, Horizon Zero Dawn bundle. I'll definitely be picking that up. But let's go ahead, leave a few questions. I'll answer to the best of my ability. I'm hearing some things about Perfect Dark. We had that conversation with Ken Lobb as well back in 2000 and was it 15? 2015? Yep, 2015. We had a conversation with Ken Lobb in the beginning of 2015, I believe it was. And he came on the show where we both agreed that we should see Perfect Dark in third person. And I'm hearing rumors about that, and that might be something that shows up. So We'll see what happens. If you feel like I'm whispering, it's because I am. My daughter's sleeping. My wife just came out and let me know that she's sleeping. I'm kind of loud, so I'm not trying to be too loud. I'm a little bit close to the mic, but I would definitely try to uh, make sure you guys can hear me. All right, so let's jump to our first question of the night. Let's see, let's see, let's see, let's see, let's see. Cervantes says Sony should pick up Kamaya and make it for PS4, just like Kojima. They have to make a new game, buddy. If it was most of the game this year, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are upset, man. Raider Max says it was his most anticipated game for this year. I mean, a lot of people are upset. It was a lot of people's most anticipated games. I think if people think Microsoft won't show anything new at E3, you'd be fooling yourselves. Like, you're not going to have a 90-minute show sitting on indie games and Scorpio. That's not how that's going to work. There will be new games that they will show. The question is, will the games be exciting and mind-blowing enough to make fans want to pick up the console? I thought last year's E3 for them was okay. I didn't think it was anything special. A lot of that stuff got leaked early on top of it, so I really wasn't blown away by it. I was really more impressed with PlayStation's show, and we said that. We said that on our E3 podcast and other podcasts when we came back home. But in the end, we wound up giving the win to Xbox because Microsoft showed off new hardware, and the new hardware was actually impressive. Xbox One S was impressive, and Scorpio was mind-blowing and was on everyone's mind. It was on everybody's minds. So for me, that's why they wound up getting the W. However, this year's a different story. Yes, you will show off Scorpio, and I'm sure you show some games that are probably mind-boggling and looks amazing. But at the same time, what do you show that's new for 2017 and 2018? What do we have to look forward to? And I truly feel like this E3 really needs to be about everything Microsoft, like not third-party marketing deals. I don't want to see Madden. I don't want to see FIFA. And I know they're going to show those things. I know they're going to do it, but I don't want to see it. Honestly, I just want to see IP after IP, whether it's a reboot, a remaster, or a new IP coming from Microsoft, to know that this studio or the studios or whoever they have making games for them is producing, and the future looks bright and great. Let's see here. Rowdy Gamer says Microsoft's special kick in the balls can't make fun of Sony for cancels anymore. Let's see. Let's see. Jump too far down. All right. All right. Microsoft better have 4 to 5 new IPs at E3 that will showcase the Scorpio power. I really hope that this rumor about Rise Empire is true. I really do. I've been seeing this thing circulate a little bit. I think Rise is the perfect game to show off the power of Scorpio. You put that game on there at 4K. You think about when you first seen Rise for the first time. Not when you saw Infamous or Uncharted or anything like that. Not anything that it kind of competes with. But the first time you seen Xbox and you saw Rise and how mind-blowing Rise looked. That's before the 900p. That's before everything. Just how mind-blowing Rise looked. And it was insane. And it sold the console. It really did sell the console. I think if they had Rise and they had Rise Empire and it is shown on Scorpio, it can really be something that showcases the game in a dramatic fashion, just because Crytek is so good at graphically intense games. And you have that bad boy running at 4K, man, a lot of heads will turn. I think a lot of heads will turn. Raider Mac asks a question that says Phantom Dust. Well, here's the thing about Phantom Dust. Phantom Dust, we had a show. Some things were said on the show. Phantom Dust wound up getting canceled, possibly because some of the things that were said on the show. And that was with an interview with Mr. Ken Lobb, the legend himself. If you haven't heard that show, go ahead on down to our interviews, scroll a little bit back around early 2015. We have an interview with Ken Lobb where we first get a chance to talk about Scalebound and Phantom Dust. And we get into some deep, great conversations. Not a lot of information, but a lot of information at the time. And unfortunately, some things that were said on that show had some repercussions, and we believe that it's possible that our show affected the game. Not our show personally, but some of the things that were said on the show got back to the developers that affected the game, and the game eventually got canceled as the studio wound up, I guess, getting released and then falling apart. So with that game, they're not making a new Phantom Dust. They decided to go with a remaster, which honestly, I'm not a fan of. First of all, I don't even like remasters. I don't buy remasters. I don't support remasters. I just don't. Now, I've never played Phantom Dust. If it was a new game, I would definitely purchase it. I think I would definitely be intrigued to get it. You're talking about next-gen graphics. You're talking about possibly being on Scorpio. A lot of potential for that game. But the fact that it's a remaster, it turns me off. So that's another game that I probably won't pick up because first of all, it's an OG Xbox game. An OG Xbox game. I don't think any coat of paint can change the gameplay mechanics of an OG Xbox game unless you do a complete overhaul of the game, from the controls to the mechanics to the technical aspects of the game, and truly make it like a true recreated remaster, maybe like Modern Warfare was. But besides that, I don't see anything that intrigues me about Phantom Dust the way the original preview for it did when they first showed it off, and I was like, wow, what is this? This looks interesting. So yeah, as far as Phantom Dust is concerned, man, that thing is done, is out the window, other than this remaster coming up. And that's definitely not enough to quench the thirst of most Xbox fans. Buffalo Bill says Xbox is done with the JRPG scene. I'm telling you. Yeah, man, I've already said I believe so as well. I've already known that for a while. However, I said this before. One of the reasons why I continue to support Microsoft, and one of the reasons why I continue to support Xbox, is because as much as I love JRPGs aren't the only games I play. And honestly, JRPGs aren't even the main games I only play nowadays. I play a lot of open world adventure titles. I like Watch Dogs, the Grand Theft Autos, the Red Dead Redemptions. I think that they have a better first person shooter in Halo over Killzone. I think they have a better racer, and this is my opinion, in Forza Horizon 3 than what they have on PlayStation. I think that Microsoft has an amazing third-person action adventure game, semi-horror game with Gears of War. I think Uncharted 4 is absolutely stunning. I think it's amazing. It's definitely in a class by itself. But once I go through, besides God of War, and this is the God of truth, besides God of War, there's nothing that I like on PlayStation's console. And I had a PS3, and this is the reason why I kind of have gravitated away from it. And I said this before, I don't know how many times I have to reiterate this. I had a PS2, I had a PS1, I grew up on SNES. I was too poor to have an NES. My mother bought me an Atari 2600. So yes, I did have ET and a bunch of other games that just looked like blocks and barely moved. But once I got my SNES, that was it. And once I got introduced to Chrono Trigger, I was hooked. That was it. Chrono Trigger is my favorite RPG of all time. So having Chrono Trigger and then moving on to PS1, I didn't get a 64. It was too expensive. The cartridges were like $70 a piece in New York. So I got the PlayStation 1. PlayStation 1 was absolutely amazing to me. Bushido Blade. There was a game on there called The One. You had the Tekken series. Final Fantasy was on there. I don't know, man. Tobo #1. There was just so many awesome RPGs on this. You had Legend of Mana. There was the Legend of Dragoon, which, oh my god, if they ever come back out with that game, I would buy a PS4 in a heartbeat. Love that game. And there's a lot of games that came out on that system that I remember buying and playing and just loving. And at that time, that's when they used to give you those PS1 disc. You would go, you get a magazine, you buy it from the store, it comes with a disc, and it was demos on there. You're playing stuff like Parappa the Rapper. You know what I'm saying? But you get a chance to test drive and all these games. So to me, PS1 was amazing. So PS2, there was no, for me, there was no hesitation, but I wound up picking up a Dreamcast first because it came out. So with Dreamcast was blowing me away. I had Skies of Arcadia, Grandia 2. I mean, there was just a ton of games on Dreamcast before it died out. And then once I crossed over to PS2, that was it. I fell in love. I didn't want any other console. Even when Xbox came out, I didn't want any other. I didn't want nothing to do with Xbox, honestly. Everything about PS2 to me was absolutely amazing. And to this day, I still think PS2 is the greatest console ever created. I don't care what console has come out. PS2 is number one in my book as the greatest console ever made. They had a year where they locked up every single exclusive deal you could think of because there was really no consoles out. 64 was out, but 64 was on its last legs. Xbox wasn't out yet. Dreamcast just died. There was just a gap. And everything had to come out on PS2 because it was the only platform for that year before Xbox and GameCube dropped. And they had everything. Mark of Cree was amazing. I talked about this game the other day. Mark of Cree was absolutely an amazing game. Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 8, 9, like there just was so many amazing games on that platform. The Devil May Cry series, Onimusha. I mean, I can go on and on. It was just an amazing platform. But then 360 came out, and PS3 came out a year later. I wound up picking up a 360 because I saw Gears. And I didn't like what they came out with PS3 when it first dropped. They had like Folklore and a few other titles that I just wasn't impressed with. But then Microsoft had Lost Odyssey. Then I started seeing like all of these JRPGs come out of nowhere. They had Kingdom Under Fire. Well, that's not a JRPG, but they had Kingdom Under Fire. They had the Dynasty Warrior series. They had Legend of Dragoon. I'm not Legend of Dragoon. They had Lost Odyssey. They had Infinite Undiscovery. They had Blue Dragon. They had Tales of Vesperia, which I love that game, and I hope that game becomes BC at some point because I never finished it. I got stuck getting all the ultimate weapons, and at the end, I messed up, wound up going to the boss too early, and just started getting my butt handed to me, and my save file was overwritten where I couldn't go back. So that kind of sucks. But they just had a ton of things, and I just didn't pick up a PS3 until really, really, really late. So when I picked up the PS3 finally, it was late in a generation, and I wound up getting, stuff like I wound up picking up Uncharted 2, which I thought was amazing. I picked up Infamous. I picked up Street Fighter, a few other titles on the top of my head. I can't think. I really was impressed with the amount of indie games they had in comparison to Xbox 360. I thought Xbox 360 had an amazing lineup of indie games. Sony had like some crazy games on PS3. I was just like, wow, this is just sick. But also, I had got so used to being a part of parties and being social with my friends, I always felt alone on PS3 all the time. And I just, for some apparent reason, it never stuck with me. The PS3 never stuck with me. So I wound up just always being on my 360, and that's why I stuck with 360. So when Xbox One came out, there was no way I was done with Sony at that point. Even early in the generation with PS4, I wasn't impressed with what they initially showed. I always felt that Infamous was a bit repetitive, especially the first one and the second one. So I wasn't looking forward to the new one with Second Son. Uncharted. I really can't think of anything big. I'm not a fan of Bloodborne. I'm not a fan of Demon's Souls. I don't have any of those games in my library. There was a lot of stuff that, I just wasn't blown away by. However, now I'm looking at stuff like, Horizon Zero Dawn looks impressive. And then they got stuff like Shenmue, Final Fantasy 7. There's games on there that's impressive. There's Star Ocean that was on Xbox. It's not on Xbox anymore. Tales games is hitting the platform. Persona's on there. There's a lot of games on there that has me intrigued. And that's why I'm probably leaning towards picking one up to get that fixed. And I've always said that. I've just been waiting for Horizon to drop. And I don't want to pick up a console and then they come out with a bundle. And I'm still stuck between getting a Pro and getting the Slim, because the Slim comes with Uncharted 4. So, that's just one of the things I'm waiting for. But then the Switch comes out, and I'm looking at the Switch 2. And that's something that has me intrigued. And I'm on a fence between both consoles. But I'm definitely going to pick up a second console. So that's my story, man. That's how I rock with Xbox. But I still think I love their other genres in comparison to PlayStation. And that's just my personal taste, and that's just my personal opinion, as well as I love the social aspect of Xbox and the way everything is set up. And I I just like everything about it. And there's no hate on PlayStation. There's no hate on Sony. I just like the way it's set up, being able to play anywhere and, you know, having the backwards compatibility with 360 games, which boosts my library from all the games I purchased digitally. I just think it's really cool, man. I just think it's really cool. All right. So I'm like really off topic at this point. Let's try to get some of these questions in real quick. All right. So we are at, I did a lot of talking and there was a lot of questions asked. I'm just going through this chat. Oh my God, there's so many people chatting right now. Okay, here we go. All right, so I don't know if Scalebound is dead because it's not due, bro. Last Side Ninja says Scalebound is dead because it was not due, bro, and it was disappointing. Scalebound was probably it was more westernized than it was Eastern. I don't think it was dead because of that. I just honestly think that Microsoft was putting money into this game, just like Fable, and this game kept getting pushed back. There was a lot of delays. People needed to take breaks. Look, what did Jeff Keighley say? That Konami locked Kojima in a room for 6 months? Think about that. These people have the opportunity to go home and take breaks and go on vacation. This video game stuff is hard, man. It's not easy. It's sad that people tend to, say developers are lazy. That's a lazy developer. You have no idea what it takes to be a developer. Everybody could be a sidearm developer. Just because you make a few indie titles, and there's no disrespect to the indie developers, doesn't mean that you can sit there and work on a major, mega AAA title that has who knows what type of timeline, deadline, and how many hours it takes to make a game. And that's a lot of stress. A lot of stress. You're talking about ruining families, relationships. You're not saying your children, you can get divorced. There's a lot of things that go into that. People need to take breaks, but Microsoft has a deadline. If this game's been worked on since 2012 and the game hasn't released in 2016, do you then go to E3 and say, okay, Scalebound comes out in 2018? People lose their minds. The Xbox fan base will lose their minds. If I was them, I would just say it's on the shelf indefinitely instead of canceling. I would have did that. That way it has no date and people just be like, oh, well, it's on the shelf. It's kind of like canceled or whatever. And they can come up with their own interpretation of it. And then eventually you drop it maybe later on Scorpio, as they build more. But I think that Platinum stretched themselves thin. I think Microsoft put pressure on them to make it co-op. And if they put pressure on them to make it Windows 10, that could be another factor. And I think it's just a combination of both companies, Platinum and Microsoft, and the game just never met its deadline and came to fruition. And Microsoft had to stop funneling money into the game, so they canceled it. The only good thing out of all this is that they actually own the IP. That's the only good thing out of this. So the potential for it to actually be done at some point is possible. Just because the game is canceled doesn't mean that it can't be restarted or rebooted or remade. But right now, that game is canceled and it is gone for the foreseeable future. And that's very disappointing. All right. So moving on. Ryder Max says, do you see Microsoft handing Scalebound to another studio? I doubt it. I don't think they'll do that. I think Microsoft will hold on to their IPs until they're ready. Corbin Dallas said, perfect Dark reboot, lock it in tick. Absolutely. I think it may happen. Like I said, I spoke to Ken Lobb about it. I told him at the time that if I was them, I would have reached out to Kojima immediately and tried to get him to help remake Perfect Dark. I thought that it would have been amazing to make a Perfect Dark, a stealth action adventure with tech, like futuristic tech, and have a combination of human and alien conspiracy, and you do battle that way. And you have all these different gadgets and all these different weapons and all these ways to survive and kill and, do stealth and stuff like that. And then you have boss battles in between. I thought it would be amazing and just have, let Kojima do it. But I mean, obviously he's working on Death Stranding. So, who do you get in return to work on that title. I don't know. I can't think of another studio that's really good at stealth titles. Maybe the guys over at Square, because they do a great job with Deus Ex, and they do a really good job with Deus Ex in the aspect of it being like conspiracy. You know, sometimes the conversations can be diluted and dialogue can be diluted, but they do a really great job with Deus Ex. I like the Deus Ex series. Don't go to Ubisoft. The Assassin's Creed series is awesome, but don't go to Ubisoft or be aware of a broken title. That's a very scary proposition. Rowdy Gamer says Phil always says he's confident about their lineup and it turns into a booty lineup. I don't know, man. I thought the first 2 years Microsoft lineup was solid. I thought it was great before all these delays and before everything turned out the way it did. I thought Microsoft had great lineups. They really did. They really did. They had a great combination of new IPs, old IPs, and indie titles. You know, but then in 2015 they started to fall apart. They had got rid of Lionhead. They got rid of Playground. Not Playground. They got rid of oh my God, what's the name of that studio? They got rid of Lionhead and they got rid of the guys who I want to say that's not Platonic. Play something. They got rid of the guys who make Kalimba and Matt's Curse of Brotherhood, who are now actually two different studios working on two games, Dwarves and Cairo, Dwarves looks amazing. Dwarves looks insane. I don't even know who came up with this idea, but I'm definitely picking it up when it drops. But they got rid of them, and now you turn around, Scalebound gets delayed, and then Scalebound's now canceled. Fable's canceled. The game that they were coming out with, that team, I don't know why I don't remember their name suddenly, which was called, it was like a Hunger Games title. Why can't I remember anything? Oh my God, I feel like I'm getting Alzheimer's. I can't remember the name of the title, but it was like a Hunger Games type game. It was an indie title, a smaller title. Let me not say indie because they were publishing it, and that got canceled. Then Project Spark got canceled. There's just a lot of games that just got canceled and cut. So I don't know. It's crazy. Nicholas Graham says, what could be totally hidden that could be a monster buy? Which studio and what type of game? Oh man, I don't think anything can be hidden unless it's like a major third-party title. I don't know any game that you can hide right now that would be mind-blowing over what we've seen so far with the competition. I couldn't think of anything. Like, even if they came out and they announced Perfect Dark reboot and they announced a new Banjo and a Conquer, that's great. I think that's great. But those are all IPs that we know of. I don't know if there's anything they could come out that's brand new that's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I don't know. I don't know. It's like I want to feel that way, but a lot of confidence, and because of what just happened, kind of like you're kind of hesitant. Kind of hesitant in that situation, and that kind of sucks. You know what I'm saying? It kind of sucks to be hesitant, and you're not sure of what they're trying to do or what they're going to do. Oh man! All right, guys, I'm trying to catch up. I'm gonna skip a few questions so I can get down to the bottom of the list of this chat because this chat is going. It's hot right now. Last Sighted said, do you think Xbox exclusives in E3 2017 will be online heavy like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, and Crackdown? Well, Sea of Thieves actually isn't really online heavy. You can actually play the game by yourself. There is a co-op aspect to it. It's not really an MMO according to Gamer Boss, who is the head over at Rare. It's not really an MMO. It's like a hybrid of some sort. Same thing with State of Decay. State of Decay is actually, you can play that game offline by yourself. You don't need to play with friends, but you can. And if you do, you can play up to 4 people co-op. I think that's pretty cool. Crackdown, though, is heavy online based, both multiplayer and single player if you want to play with a friend. So that is the one game that I would be wary of. But I think that game might be, unless they show something else, might be the biggest game that they show at E3 because of the new tech that they're trying to show off. And if they get it right, don't get me wrong, it can really wow the crowd. It'll really blow minds and stuff like that. But they need something unique. They definitely need something unique. That's how I feel. Like, that's how I feel right now. They need something unique. James Polita says, and what if Scalebound needed like another 2 years to make and Microsoft just couldn't invest more in it? I agree. If it did need another 2 years, that could have been another 2 years of millions of dollars that, and here's the reality you guys got to also think about. Let's say it took Microsoft 6 years to make this game, right? And that game has been in production for 6 years. There's no way Microsoft recoups the money they've invested into the game. At some point, you have to say the investment is actually a debt and you'll never recover what you invested. So you have to let it go. Don't get me wrong. You can sit there and say, oh, they recovered a little bit, but then they put out a title and the title is garbage. Microsoft will be known for every single new IP they put out has not been a 90 or in the high 80s. I mean, don't get me wrong. Not every single one, but the last two, Recore and Quantum Break. Recore mainly because it was buggy, not even because the game was bad, but because it was buggy. And I heard they fixed that. And then there's supposed to be some DLC coming out. Now, there's a trailer going around about it being like Recore 2 or Recore expansion. What you're seeing is not Recore. That is not Recore. I don't know who brought that up or who put that up there. That's not Recore. That's actually another game that was shown off in 2014 in China. It's actually a China exclusive title. I know what game it is. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but that's not Recore. So yeah, it's a tough situation for Microsoft right now. Maybe they really felt like they couldn't afford to put out another game that wasn't a mega hit, and it wasn't shaping up to be a mega hit. So they'd rather take the L than take a bigger L. Sometimes you gotta take small L's, lowercase L's. You know what I'm saying? You got to take a lowercase L, bro. You can't take a capital L sometimes. Sahan says, it's like Microsoft is heavily focused on live service model for the games and focusing heavily on co-op and multiplayer. That's what works for them, though. When everybody, it's like this. When I go to a store, if I speak to somebody, and I asked them, what could you tell me about these consoles? There's two things that people say about Xbox and PlayStation. If you want single player experiences in Japanese titles, pick PlayStation and exclusives. If you want multiplayer titles, racing games, big blockbuster action games, then you pick Xbox. And Xbox has its set of exclusives, but PlayStation has more games. That's what I'm told. That's what I hear. That is the thing. So Microsoft has built this reputation of having a fantastic online network. A lot of people know it's known for multiplayer. It got its name with Call of Duty, even though Call of Duty is no longer on it. You got Battlefield on it. It's got the Azure cloud. There's a lot of things Microsoft does right online. So to boast that, I would boast that. It's a strength. It's not a weakness. You have to boast your strengths. I think for Sony, having the amount of Japanese and exclusive titles that they have is a strength for them as well. Whether it's indie, whether it's not even truly a true exclusive. And what I mean by that, because I said this earlier to my boy Nicodemus, was that it's not even something that like Sony signed a deal. Like, oh, we're going to sign this deal and we have all these exclusives. It's just games not releasing on Xbox because devs don't, the console's not selling in Japan or in the East. It's not selling well in Europe. So they don't want to put it on a console and just sell it to the West, Europe and the UK. I mean, the UK and America or wherever else is popular at. If it's not going to do well in their own home country. So they just don't put it on there. But that's not something like, oh, let's Sony just signed all of these exclusive deals. That's not how that happened. So it's funny when people like, oh, Sony has all these exclusive. They do. Don't get me wrong. They do. There's a lot of times they do have exclusive, but it's not something that they did naturally. It's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? It's not to say that the company can never put that game on Xbox. It's just how it is right now because then Microsoft doesn't do well in Japan, so they're not releasing the games on there. And that's just the God honest truth. If it was doing better in Japan, they probably will all share the same games like they did sort of last generation. Buffalo Bill says Microsoft owes it to fans to talk up games instead of Scorpio and before E3. I honestly think that what Microsoft should do is actually show Scorpio first. Get the hardware out the way. The hardware takes up the most time. It really does. It takes like 10, 15 minutes of the show. You're showing off the hardware. You're talking about the specs. You're going to show off the feature set. You're going to talk about what it can do, how fast it can download, how, what type of processors are in it, with the battery, how long it powers or the heat consumption. You're going to talk about all these things. All of these things take up like 15 minutes. And nobody wants to waste time. We want to see games at E3. We want to see what we're going to be playing on that console. So I think they should have a separate show about 2 weeks before E3 or the weekend before their Microsoft conference. Show off the console, show us what it looks like, show us playing something, maybe announce one new title, and then just show us every single game that they got at E3. They talk about they got 14 titles. If they got 14 games in production that they're going to show at E3, the whole show really needs to be dedicated to those games. It definitely does. It needs to be dedicated to those titles. East Sider 49er says losing third-party deals is why Microsoft is second this gen. Those are the facts. What third-party deals are they losing? I'm trying to figure this out. Every deal there are really no third-party exclusives. Honestly, everything is third-party marketing deals. The only thing that they're losing third-party wise is basically Japanese titles and indie games. There is no major third-party title that's come out from any major publisher that's been exclusive to PlayStation or hasn't ended up on Xbox, or the game hasn't ended up from on Xbox onto PlayStation. Tomb Raider was on Xbox, now it's on PlayStation. Death Rising 4 is on Xbox, it will be on PlayStation. There were a ton of indie games that were exclusive from Abe's Odyssey or Munchie's Odyssey to The Witness, and all those games are on Xbox now at this point. So I'm not understanding what are these major third parties. Now, if you want to talk about, Japanese studios, then yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. There's a ton of Japanese studios. There's absolutely nothing that Microsoft can do about that at this point, though. Last Side Ninja says, yet again, it shows Microsoft needs more first-party devs. I have no argument against that. I absolutely agree. Or they need to allow 343, the coalition, to make new IP. They just do. I stress this to Phil when we had him on the show, and I spoke to him, and his answer was those studios are built for those games, and I get that. Don't get me wrong, I get that, and I mean no disrespect to Phil. Big fan of Phil. I respect Phil to death. He's done a lot for this podcast and done a lot for tech without question. But let's just keep it 100. It's almost like saying your kid can't get water for himself. These people have been developing games for decades, years. I'm pretty sure they can come together to create something new with the tech that they have between them, with Unreal Engine 4, with the coalition, and whatever Halo runs under on 343 Industries. I'm pretty sure they can come up with something new. I'm pretty sure these studios are talented enough to do that and make their own IPs and be creative and make something new. I'm pretty sure that's possible. But I don't know if that will ever happen. And that right there in itself could be a disappointing factor. Now, initially, I had no problem with third-party support, but this goes back to what I was saying before. I got into a big argument with somebody about third-party support. If this was a first-party studio, this game would just be in hell. It would just be in development hell. I don't know if the game would have got canceled. It just would have been in development hell. But at the same time, because it's third-party, I think the game it got canceled and it's done at this point. And that's why it was important for first party, because there's certain things you can do with first party because you just control first party. And don't get me wrong, third party IPs that you own and hiring outside studios is great. And I said this before, somebody didn't agree with me. But to me, it just seems like you just become dependent on that third party studio. And if things don't go right, if they decide they don't want to work with you, if they decide they're tired of doing the game, what are you going to do? You can go out and try to get a third person or another studio to do it. It's not going to feel the same. The approach that next studio takes, it will not be the same. It'll be different. It'll be the same game, but it'll be different. And some people may like it and some people may not. And I think of Crackdown and how that went from, the first studio to Ruffian, and how even though that game was rushed, absolutely. I'm not trying to say that it couldn't have been a better game, but the game was rushed. But still, the game turned out terrible in comparison to the first one. So normally when you build a game, you want to stick with the studio that built it because they get it. They understand it. They can work with the game. Or if you create a studio you bring people from the original studio because they get it. They understand the lore. They understand the direction the game is going. And they can teach the other people and show the other people. But it's hard to do that if you just give it to a new studio. One of the things they said was World About Killer Instinct. That was made by, Ken Lobb. You know who Ken Lobb is? Ken Lobb is a legend, bro. Ken Lobb worked on every game you could think of from your childhood, especially anything related to Rare. He was the voice of Chief Thunder. He produced Killer Instinct. He worked on Donkey Kong. He worked on Star. There was so many Rare games that came out back in the day. Ken Lobb worked on. It's insane. But, at the end of the day, he worked on Killer Instinct. And he was a part of the Rare team and a part of the original team and the original voice for Chief Thunder. So, yes, you still have people. You still have people who work on these games that know what the original game was like. And that's why that's important. But I still think first party studios is important. I don't know why Microsoft doesn't do it. I just feel like under Nataya Sadella, the new CEO, in comparison to Ballmer, they just are on a tighter leash. Microsoft is on a leash. They're on a budget. The marketing budget is low. I feel like they don't market games the way they used to on 360. Everything is different. It just is. And with Matrick and Ballmer, man, they didn't give a damn what it was. Throw money at it. That was the model. Pop bottles and throw money at it. That was the model with Matrick and Ballmer, bro. What? PlayStation's getting Grand Theft Auto 2? Give me that DLC for 30 days. Throw money at it. Pop a bottle. Ballmer over there popping bottles. What? Call of Duty is on PlayStation 2? Give me that DLC for 30 days. Throw money at it. That's what it was. You know what I'm saying? Just throw whatever money you can to get whatever you can to make your platform the best. It didn't do great for first party, but it was a killer instinct. I give Matrick that. He had a killer instinct, man. He did. Well, here's the thing, Eastsider. He says, I agree with first-party studios, though they need 5 to 10 continuing to pump out new IPs and sequels. Sony don't even have 5 to 10 first-party studios pumping out 5 to 10 games. They don't. They really don't. They don't have that. I know Sony has a lot of studios. I know a lot of people think they have a ton of studios, but when you really look at it, they really don't. They had a lot of studios back in the day, but they really don't anymore. You just have a few studios pumping out multiple titles is what you have. You have Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Sony Japan, and then you have some smaller studios working on some indie games or some third-party deals that they worked out, but they don't own those studios on those third-party deals or on those indie deals. No Man's Sky and stuff like that. They don't own those. They don't own those studios. But what Microsoft needs to do is allow their studios to make multiple games. They need to make their big studios make multiple games. I feel like if the Forza team had an opportunity to make a game like Driver, wouldn't it be amazing? You think about Forza Horizon 3 and how amazing and open world that game is. Now put a person in a car, give it a story, give it some action, some cops and robbers. It would be an amazing game. The world doesn't even have to be that big. It doesn't have to, it could be one city. It doesn't have to be as big as how Forza has, Australia or, the south of Italy or whatever. It doesn't have to be that big. But you take Forza mechanics, you make a true action game out of that with a vehicle. Oh my God, forget it. It would be amazing. Be amazing, bro. It would be amazing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, I think these studios can have an opportunity to do something else. I'm pretty sure you have to bring somebody in for that, but it's possible. It's possible. It is possible. And yes, you open up a studio or two, and I think they should open up a Japanese studio. Now, this is just wishful thinking. What I'm saying right now is clearly far-fetched, but I'm just saying it's something that they should think about. I don't know why they don't have a Japanese studio in Japan. I don't know why, but if I was them, I would have been made one a long time ago. Control Chaos said, I blame the Chinese. I don't think Japanese anymore. They are too close in bed with Sony. You're a fool. Black and Red says, right, it got delayed in January of 2016 and was slated for early 2017 release. And I'm sure Phil said that Platinum just wasn't hitting their deadlines and pulled the plug on it. That's pretty much what it was. That's what I'm reading. Now, there's people, I just seen something today. You got people talking about Microsoft is shady and they're doing all these things and stuff like that. Bro, listen, if I'm a company and I'm paying you millions and millions of dollars and you're not producing for me as a business, listen, there's no love in business, bro. Like, I don't think people get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to keep my business afloat. There's no love in business. There's no friendships in business. There's contracts and there's broken contracts. That's what it is. When we sign that contract, we the best friend. We best friends. Hey, I'm smiling, you smiling, you shake my hand, you sign the dotted line. All right. I'm giving you X amount of money. Get this shit done. You don't get it done, bro. We're not friends. I'm breaking that contract. I'm losing money. I'm losing money out the wazoo. People want people to be nice to each other. Like, people think Sony is nice. Like, Sony's not a business. Sony's a business too. You see how fast they backed away from No Man's Sky, bro? Yo, they backpedal faster than Michael Jackson moonwalk. They were pumping that game out. They was boasting. They were boasting No Man's Sky like it was the greatest game ever. As soon as that game came out, it didn't do well, and everybody was hitting up Sean Murray. You saw Sony back away so fast. Well, I don't know. This is what they promised. I'm just as disappointed as you. I'm just as disappointed as you. Word, Sony, you just as disappointed as me. Word, you didn't know this was happening. All right, got you. That's that's how Sony rolled though, on the low. But nobody believes that. But listen, business is business at the end of the day. And yeah, man, if you don't meet your deadlines, and people are humans. People need rest. People can't just keep going. This game was ambitious. They was talking about an open world game with 4 things on screen, 4 people, control characters, and 4 AI dragons that you can actually give commands. Talking about battling giant monsters on screen at the same time. And the game wasn't like some type of like Borderlands graphics. This game was like borderline, realistic. It looked really, really good. And the monsters reminded me of like God of War with this Titan stuff, and you had to scale them and stuff like that. The game looked great. And I just think it was just too much. I think it was just too ambitious and they couldn't meet it. I think the studio was too small and they couldn't meet it, and it got pulled, and it's disappointing. It really is disappointing. Let's see. D21 exclusive said, I'd rather have a new third person game and have a true first person perfect dark. I do not want another first person shooter from Xbox. I don't. And honestly, another first person shooter in the sci-fi genre is something I really don't want. I mean, you already got Halo, which is sci-fi. You already have Gears, which is like borderline fantasy, kind of like sci-fi a little bit. And then you're talking about adding Perfect Dark, another first person shooter, even though Gears is third person. I'd rather have a stealth action game. I really do. I just rather, to me, it be a third person stealth action adventure. It would really separate it from everything else they have. And she and Jewel from Recore would make a great 1-2 combo, especially if they made a new Recore. I think it'd be a perfect fit. You have a stealth action game with Perfect Dark, and then you have an action adventure game, dungeon crawling with Recore. I think those would really offset themselves, honestly. Sea of Thieves also, Eastsider 49 says Sea of Thieves, although a game I may never play, is what I like to see. It reaches other gamers, not just casuals like me. Sea of Thieves is going to be absolutely amazing. So far, from what I've seen, this game is actually being played right now. It's in alpha. It's an NDA on anybody who's in it, but this game is going to be amazing. Trust me. I played it at E3. I've been talking to these guys about this game. The stuff you can do in this game is going to be sick. It's going to be hot. It's going to be sick. It's dope. I'm looking forward to the game. I'm really looking forward to the game. And that's one of the few games that I could say that kind of has me still hyped for what they have to show at E3 2017. The Culling is also a pretty cool indie title, which is coming to Xbox. Buffalo Bill says, what do you do in Sea of Thieves? Well, in Sea of Thieves, basically, you start out by yourself. You can eventually get your own crew, and you basically go on adventures. And each island that you discover, think of Assassin's Creed Black Flag in a way. Each island that you discover can lead to a new adventure or a new story. There's magic involved, skeletons. The Kraken is in the game. There's mermaids. There's other people live in the game that you could bump into on the sea, and you can get into ship battles. You can board other ships. You can make people walk the plank. You can take prisoners. You can hijack their gold and collect it for yourself. You can find treasure maps and find new islands and then try to find a buried treasure and dig it up as a crew. But you have to work as a crew. So you can't just man a ship by yourself, especially a big one. You got somebody that's all the way at the top looking for islands and land ho and other ships. You have somebody steering the ship. You have people pulling up the anchor, people dropping the sails. When you get hit, your boat takes on water. You got to have people underneath literally plugging in the holes and trying to get rid of the water so you don't sink. It's a really cool game, man. And you can steal the loot and stuff like that. It's pretty dope. And you could be like the best pirates in the game and really rule the open seas. So it's really dope, man. And it's not just like you by yourself going against the AI. It's you going against other people, and it's you going against the AI. So that's pretty dope in itself. And it's made by Rare, which is great for them because they make a new IP and it allows them to get away from the whole Connect thing and get back to what they do. LM Beck says, I think a lot of peeps are blowing a Scalebound thing out of hand, going off emotions too much. I agree. I did go off emotions earlier, but you got to understand that with that game, it was different. It was something Xbox didn't have. It was unique. Microsoft doesn't have a lot of unique titles. They tried to have unique titles with Quantum Break, Recore, but those games didn't pan out the way people wanted them to. Scalebound was next on that list. We've played Crackdown before. Crackdown with infinite destruction and multiplayer looks amazing, and I'm sure it will be fantastic, but it's no different. It's still Crackdown. They can improve on the gameplay and everything like that, but it's Crackdown. We've played Crackdown. So Scalebound was one of the few games where it was new, it was fresh, the possibilities of what you can do in the game, sequels, the lore, everything had people intrigued, and it's gone. so you lost that unique title. So where do you go? Hopefully Microsoft has another unique title or something to replace it. Let's see. Gunstar says Scalebound was what I thought was the start of Xbox getting into RPG scene. I was so hyped, such a bummer. Absolutely, I agree. Reverend Ship 4 says, I just stumbled around here, and what is this channel about? Well, bro, this channel used to be an old Xbox channel. Now it is called the Inner Circle Network. This is now a network channel. We have the Inner Circle podcast, which is an Xbox dedicated podcast. We have the Multiverse podcast, which is our kind of like all-around podcast where they talk about games, they talk about movies, they talk about Xbox, PlayStation. We're currently working on a PlayStation exclusive podcast, code name the We Got Exclusives Podcast. I don't know why I love that name. It's so funny. But we are in the hunt right now. We're picking up some really awesome people, non-biased PlayStation gamers, which seems very hard to find, but not Xbox hating PlayStation gamers that's really going to focus on PlayStation content, PlayStation games, and stuff like that. And we're still holding on to another podcast that we have, but currently those will be a part of our network shows, and those will eventually hit iTunes, and you can find all of those weekly on our iTunes, and we'll be rotating that. And then we also have still the Tick Podcast iTunes channel, where if you just want only Xbox stuff, you can get Tick Podcast, you can get Super Podshots, and you can get Top Shelf with Anchorman V on that feed as well. So yeah, man. I mean, what we try to do is we try not to be like everybody else. We try to be authentic. We try to keep it real. We try not to bash other consoles or get into any heated debates or curse people out or anything like that. We really try to keep it gaming as much as possible, while also actually getting to talk to developers, understanding how games work, talking to executives, doing things that other podcasts out there really just don't do. And I think that's what makes us really unique, and why, even though we may have a small base, a lot of people respect what we do, and they come hang out with us and they get news from us. And I appreciate that. Cervantes says Sony has more than double the first party studios than Microsoft. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 6 or 7. Yeah, that makes sense. I think Microsoft has 3, 3 or 4. Yeah, I mean, sure, that makes sense. I'm sure they have a lot of studios. I'm just not seeing what these other studios are making. I'm not seeing it. I mean, if you can tell me what they're making, then I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, you got Media Molecule. I know that they got Dreams and stuff. You got, like I said, Studio Japan. You got Sony. You got Sony Santa Monica. You got Polyphony. You got Naughty Dog. You got Guerrilla Games. Is that like, I don't know, 6 or 7 right there? That's about what I said. And if they have smaller studios, like little smaller ones for indie games, then I've never heard of them. But those are the big major ones that I know of. I know that. Microsoft currently has they have Forza. Jesus Christ. They have 343 Industries, the Coalition, Turn 10, and then they have a few other studios that no one knows about. It's like smaller studios. I can't think off the top of my head. I would have to look them up, honestly. But there's some smaller studios. Gunstar Hero says it was pretty shady of Microsoft not to let the news out until after the holidays. Yeah, don't ruin my Christmas. That would have ruined my Christmas, bro. That was smart. That was smart. Zach Karim, what's up, brother? He says, this is crazy. Definitely will put a damper on a momentum Xbox game. They need to blow the doors off E3. That's the only thing that will make the fans happy. A Megaton announcement will heal this pain. I think a Megaton announcement is due. Absolutely. Absolutely, without question. I don't know what they're going to show. I don't know what they're going to do, but a Megaton announcement is definitely due, and Microsoft definitely needs to come correct at E3. Fallout Boy says, I don't think turning Perfect Dark, the spiritual successor to GoldenEye, into a third-person stealth title would be a good idea for its fans. Microsoft would be better off buying a Splinter Cell IP, in my opinion. See, this is what I'm talking about. Why do they have to buy IPs? Here's the thing. You know how many IPs Microsoft has? You'd be surprised how many IPs Microsoft has. Hundreds of IPs, dormant IPs. They own the Mech Warrior series, yet they license it out to third parties. They literally own the Mech Warrior series as a Microsoft. It's like a Microsoft PC title, but they don't make it for Xbox. There's a new Mech Warrior being made right now that's third party that's being released on PC. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. Think about all the Rare games that they own. I know they just renewed Jet Force Gemini last year, which could be something they show at E3. Who knows? You got the Conkers, you got Conker, you got Banjo, you got Battletoads, you got Saberwolf, Viva Pinata, Grab by the Ghoulies. They used to have Blinks, but they let that title lapse. Cameo. Like, think about that. Think about all these platformers and stuff that they own. There's so many games that Microsoft owns. It really is. The Mech Warrior series, Crimson Skies. You got Blood. What's that game? Not Blood Wake. Brute Force, which I hated. I hope they never make that game again. There's a ton of games that they own. They just let them. They're just there. They're literally just there. Like Phantom Dust is a game that no one thought about. Microsoft owns Phantom Dust. No one's thinking about that game, but they decided they want to reboot it. Microsoft has a ton of IPs that they can just pull from. In my opinion, making a game like Saberwolf, made by Rare like 1983 or 86 or whatever it was, where you have this guy that literally transforms into a werewolf and fights. That's amazing. Could you imagine having a AAA title where you play this guy who gets bit by a wolf and he's trying to find a cure and he's going against other Lycan or vampires, but he's a werewolf, and a single player action adventure title exclusively on Xbox? That would be bonkers. Bonkers. You can even actually have a tie-in with Killer Instinct. It would be bonkers. And you could play Saberwolf. That would be nuts. That would be nuts, but that's not what they do. You know why? That's not what they do, because gamers think that way. I think these guys are gamers. Don't get me wrong. I know Phil Spencer is absolutely a gamer. But I just think some of the developers are just developers. And I don't know who comes up with ideas for games, but I really feel like I should work for Microsoft because I could churn them out. I can definitely churn them out. Oh my Lord. That's crazy. D21 Exclusive says, if they make Perfect Dark a third-person game, the fans will complain. If they want a third-person game, name it something else. I just feel like another first-person shooter falls right back into the basket of what Microsoft does. There's nothing unique about that. Nothing. I'm telling you right now, there's nothing unique about Perfect Dark being another first-person shooter. It's always been a first-person shooter. But changing the game to appeal and be something different, be a genre you don't have, makes that game possibly unique. You can even go, you know what you could do? You can be like Metal Gear. Which one was it? Metal Gear Solid 2? Metal Gear 2. Yeah, Metal Gear 2, where you had a combination of third person, first person. And third person, you did everything. You walked around, you did your stealth and everything. But when you aim down sights, you literally, when you pulled that left trigger, it made you go first person and you would aim down sights. I wouldn't mind that if you alternate between the two. But just going first person when you already have a first person sci-fi title, it's like, oh, another first person sci-fi title. Like, I don't know why people don't see what I see. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Ellen Beck said, people want new stuff, but won't buy new stuff. Sunset Overdrive was good, but did not sell very well. Most players on Xbox play certain games, right? Halo, COD, NBA, etc. Yeah, I mean, the mainstream buys those games. Halo, COD, NBA. You know what? I have Sunset. I don't like Sunset. I might be one of the few Xbox gamers that don't like Sunset. You know what I hate about Sunset? Moving. I hate jumping around all the time, sliding around, gliding around, bouncing around. It's annoying. It is so annoying after a while. Like, I really tried to play this game, but constantly moving while you're shooting and doing this against a boss. Oh my God, forget it. It's terrible. It's terrible. I hate the game. I think the overall aspect of what they wanted to do was amazing. The comedy is hilarious, but the actual gameplay, it's annoying. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that felt that way. That's just how I feel. Let's see. Eastsider says, "I'm no. Is that? Do you think State of Decay 2 will be ready for Scorpio launch?" Grisette 22 says, "Do you think State of Decay 2 will be ready for Scorpio launch?" Absolutely. State of Decay 2 is a like smaller, like an AA title. It's not a AAA title. It's not an indie because Microsoft is publishing it, and Microsoft right now is in contract with Undead Labs. So it's like an AA title. It will definitely be one of those games that they release like September or August, which will launch right before Scorpio comes out, more than likely in October, the month of Scorpio, which more than likely will be when they launch it, either late October or early November. But I'm leaning more late October because that's when Scorpio, the Scorpio sound will be, it'll be that month for Scorpio. And that makes sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if State of Decay 2 is ready by then and all 4K'd up in 60 frames per second and ready to rock in that aspect, which I think would be really cool. Direct said Microsoft shouldn't wait for E3. They need to have a Scorpio event soon with big game announcements to keep momentum going. And I agree. I feel like Microsoft should drop news on Scorpio as soon as possible. As soon as this console is ready, everything is locked in, and they pretty much have everything down packed. All you're doing is optimizing the console. From there, they should definitely just announce it, announce a prototype or something. I mean, if you make changes along the way, you make changes, but they really need to announce the beef of the console. They don't have to show nothing off. We don't want to have anything, oh, Microsoft was playing this on a PC type situation again. Jesus Christ, living that down for 2 years was hell. But they really need to be able to show something that really puts momentum back in their favor. And E3 needs to be dedicated to games and a lot of exclusives. You have a third party deal, that's fine. I know it's going to happen, but it really needs to be dedicated to Microsoft IPs. Ellen Big says Brute Force was awesome. How dare you? Brute Force was terrible, bro. I was like, oh, Bungie made this game. This game is gonna be amazing. I bought that game, took that game back like the same day, bro. Game was horrible. Fallout Boy says Nintendo is in a weakened state a la Sega circa Dreamcast in 2001. What do you think about the probability of Microsoft possibly buying Nintendo? They already have a good relationship with Minecraft on Wii U. Microsoft can't buy Nintendo. According to some research I did a while back when everybody was begging Microsoft to buy Capcom, Japanese studios cannot be bought by outside studios. Studios not I guess you could say, owned or created by Japanese companies. I guess, I don't know, something like that. Like it has to be purchased by a Japanese company. So Nintendo, I think, can only be sold to like Samsung. You know what I'm saying? Or partially sold to like Japan has to have, like, it's a legacy thing. Like Japan has to have the majority stake ownership of Nintendo to keep it in their country as a legacy. Like they would never give Nintendo up. So same thing with Capcom. They would never give Capcom up. It's not something that an American company can go out and just buy. But a Japanese studio can buy anything. They can buy any American company. America don't have nothing like that, which is, let me not get into politics. I don't want to get into politics. Because I am definitely I'm a homer. But at the same time, I think that they definitely don't They don't allow it. So it wouldn't be something Microsoft could do. What Microsoft could do is buy IPs, though, and maybe open up a smaller studio and have guys work on those IPs for the platform. But I just don't see it ever happening. I don't see it. I think if anything was to happen, I think, to be honest with you, I would hope Nintendo and Sega merge and become a super company. That's what I would hope. It would be glorious. It would be absolutely glorious. Do you understand what that, like, just think about that for 1 second. Nintendo and Sega, even though Sega's past its prime, the franchises they own, and you're talking about Nintendo, Mario, and Sonic together at last under one roof. Oh my God. What? I would buy anything they put out. That thing could be walking around with blades hanging out of it, threatening to kill my children. I would buy it. What? Oh my God, it would be nuts. Reset 22 says they need to bring back Fusion Frenzy. That's what I meant, not Power Stone. Yes, Fusion Frenzy is a title that I feel that they definitely need to bring back. It's one of the few titles I think they should definitely bring back, just for the simple fact that it's a party game. And it's one of the few party titles that Microsoft actually owns and could, was really fun. It wasn't a bad game at all. I had a lot of fun playing that with, my family, my sisters, my brother, stuff like that, and just having just wild party nice hours playing Fusion Frenzy. They should have released that as like a $20 downloadable rebooted indie game. They really should. And I think people would just eat it up. I don't know why Microsoft is so hesitant. I don't know if they have the budget to put out as many games. That's how I feel. I feel like they just can't put out as many games as they want. I feel like they're limited. And honestly, at this point, I would rather Microsoft, actually, I would rather Xbox be on its own. I would rather Microsoft give them like $50 billion and just let them go to do what they want to do. So they don't, I feel like Microsoft is controlling Xbox. That's how I feel at this point. I feel like Microsoft is controlling Xbox, controlling everything they do, and they can't be free to do anything they want to do. Zach Karim says, I think Treasure could finish Scalebound. They're really good developers. If not, they get Sega to make Streets of Rage or at least Afterburner. Just get something. My man Zach is like, I don't care what they do. Just get something, okay? Get something to replace Scalebound because this is a catastrophe at this point. Now, Zedpo1 says something that's interesting. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if Scalebound is canceled on X1, but not a Scorpio exclusive. What do you mean that it gets canceled on X1 but becomes a Scorpio exclusive? It happened to Rise Son of Rome for Xbox 360. Right. So what I think what he's trying to say is he wouldn't be surprised if it got canceled for X1, but later down the road, maybe ends up on Scalebound because it's the more powerful console that can do a ton more. The problem with that theory is that Microsoft keeps stating that there's no one left behind. Like there's no one's left behind. Like they're on a sinking ship and they're trying to save like this is the Titanic and they're trying to save everybody on every raft they possibly can, knowing some people are going to die. Like there's just not enough boats. So saying, I agree. I think Microsoft at some point, maybe 2 years from now of the launch of the Scorpio, should make some type of exclusive title. And, especially if the price drops, then you just have people start upgrading. At some point, you got to take advantage of the power for a game fully, completely made with no downporting or not worrying about any other console and having parity with Xbox One. That would be interesting, though. I doubt it, but that would be definitely interesting. Foul Davikin, what's up, brother? Foul Davikin says, I just joined the stream, but Microsoft should take Scalebound and let Bethesda work on it and finish it. No, absolutely not. One of the few things I disagree with. That game is so Japanese. Like it's definitely Eastern. I mean, it's definitely Western. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely Western, but everything about the aesthetic of that game screams Japanese. From the dragon design to the character design the enemy design, like everything in that game screams Japanese. Make it Bethesda, which is a true Western studio that normally works on PC, like has been like a PC studio for a very long time, and now they have games coming to Xbox and PlayStation. I just don't see the fit. I don't see the fit, and I don't think that would be a good matchup. I do agree with Karim though that Sega could be a good studio. Sega could be a good studio for something like that, but I don't think Bethesda would be a good studio. Yeah, I mean, if I'm working with Bethesda, I would want them to make me some type of exclusive title, some exclusive RPG that's not like Skyrim, that's not like Fallout, but definitely different. But definitely an RPG. If I'm them, I don't want anything like Scalebound. I want something unique from Bethesda. That's what I would request and stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty cool if they were able to do that. All right. Well, it looks like, man, I've been chatting for an hour and 25 minutes. I want to thank everybody for stopping out. I really appreciate all the comments and all the questions. I try to do my best to answer what I could and keep up with the chat. Yeah, man. So in conclusion, man, I think Microsoft has a lot to do. I think Microsoft has a lot to do. I think they have a lot on their plate. The loss of, I just think about everything they've lost over the last 12 months, not even like the last 8 months or 6 months. It's been pretty brutal if you think about it. You know, they've lost Fable Legends, they lost Lionhead Studios, they lost the developers of Max and Kalimba, and along with that, they lost the possibility of getting that Hunter's Game type title. You just canceled Scalebound. You canceled Phantom Dust. Now you're making a remaster, supposedly. What's the game? Spark. I forget the name of the game. Spark. Something Spark, where you create games. That winds up getting canceled as well. They got rid of the workout thing with the Kinect. They literally just dropped Kinect at this point too with the Xbox One Slim. There's a lot of things that happened with Microsoft where there's a lot of things that happened over the last year that if you've been watching, a lot of things happening that people aren't noticing, they're not really paying attention to because they don't want to pay attention to it. But you have to question what's happening at Microsoft. You have to question what's going on. I don't think Microsoft is getting out the race by any stretch. And I hope that people, if you're listening to this show, you don't think that either, because that's not happening. Microsoft is not getting out the race. As long as Sony is in the race, Microsoft will definitely be in the race. But they are definitely making a lot of changes, and a lot of Xbox fans are concerned about, you know, what direction that they're taking or what direction they're going to go. I think there will always be a console with Xbox. It's just whether or not you know, they're just going to stick with the 3 studios and keep producing the same stuff, or they're finally going to step up and make their own studios, or they'll be spun off from Microsoft, which at this point I think would be a good thing. Honestly, I really do. I really think would be a good thing at this point, because I feel like the business side of Microsoft is holding back the gaming side of Xbox. You look at Sony. Sony is free, kind of. They're like, Sony depends on PlayStation, so they have no choice but to pump out what they could pump out with PlayStation to recoup what they can recoup money-wise. That is their bread and butter. Xbox isn't for Microsoft. It's not even close to their bread and butter. So I think having Microsoft spun off would be amazing. It would be great for them, I think, overall. And they would be free to do what they want and be able to make deals with what they want. But they definitely would need a big treasure, like a big treasure chest of money from Microsoft, and I think they wouldn't be held back, and they can make the decisions that they want to make that's best for the company and not have to answer to a CEO or COO or anything like that, or a board of directors that's maybe stopping them from doing what they want to do because they feel like they may be wasting money. That's just my opinion on it. So I really have a lot of faith in Microsoft. I really hope that, you know, Phil Spencer and the team has a good E3. Very disappointed in the loss of Scalebound, one of my most anticipated games. I don't know what they're going to show, but it's really, in my opinion, a step back for Xbox, and they really need to recoup. They really need to recoup big time. Scorpio's amazing. I'm still picking up the console. It's definitely my most anticipated device that I'm picking up this year. And I'm definitely probably going to pick up a Switch and a PlayStation. But Scorpio is number 1 on my list. But Scorpio is not going to be enough when you lose a title like Scalebound, in my opinion. Even if Scalebound, like, we don't know what Scalebound was going to be. So I don't want to make a Scalebound like, oh my God, it was going to be this amazing AAA title that was going to sell 120 million. That's not what I'm saying, but it was unique. It was unique. It was different. It was something that Microsoft didn't have, and it drew a lot of attention to people who was interested in the game, and that's gone. So now we're back to square one, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. So Microsoft needs to be able to figure it out. I would love for Miss Walker to show up. Oh my God. Miss Walker shows up at Microsoft's E3. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing it. I'm happy. I'm happy. You can't tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing and stuff like that. You definitely can't tell me nothing. Miss Walker shows up with a new Lost Odyssey or a new JRPG, period. I would just be ecstatic. So we'll see what happens, man. I want to thank everybody for stopping out. Is there any last questions before I head out? Eric, get out of my chat. Why are you trolling? Gunstar Hero said get Miss Walker to finish Scalebound. I don't know if they do those type of games. Does Microsoft own Miss Walker or whatever they're called? They do not own them. No, they did help them start their company though. And in return, Miss Walker gave them Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, which Microsoft owns both IPs. But they don't own Miss Walker. Gunstar Hero asks, who made Alpha Protocol? I believe that was Obsidian. I think Obsidian made Alpha Protocol, which actually was supposed to be an amazing game, but turned out pretty poorly. I agree, Foul. Foul says, I just want to see Scalebound as a finished product. All right, guys. You guys have a great night. It's 11:20 p.m. on the East Coast. I want to thank everybody for stopping in, chatting with me, hanging with me on this crazy night of news. And I will have an official Super Pod shot this Thursday. And I believe we may possibly have a writer's block tomorrow. But hey, keep an eye out for our new PlayStation show. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Hopefully you appreciate the things that we're trying to do at Tip Network as we expand this year. And we got the new website coming where you guys can join as members, which is one of the cool things. If you don't know, while I still have you guys in here, if you don't know, as a member, when you make posts or you join the forums or you leave a comment, you level up. You get points, you get a level, you get a rank, you get a badge. And if you are one of our top guys at the end of the month, you get a $20 gift card for the console of your choice. And you can use that on whatever you want. If you do it multiple times, you just stack them. That's what we want to do. We want to reward our supporters and the people who are coming to the website and joining news and starting conversations. I think that'll be really cool. And I'll be happy to help you guys get rewards for supporting us. So I'm very grateful for that. And hope to see you guys on Wednesday or Thursday. Just keep it locked on TIC_podcast on Twitter, and I will let you know when the next show with Kal-El will be. I'm your host, Kal-El S. Kal-El, the last on the planet Xbox, and I'm off this planet. You guys have a great night. Peace.